All right, friends. So the second Satipatthana, and I'm actually going to share a screen for this one, and we're going to read through it because the second and the third are only about maybe 2 paragraphs long. Like these are not about specific techniques, specific these are not about giving you specific things that you do, specific techniques. I'll just go with that. But these are actually giving you pointers at where to look and how to look in relation to the place that we're putting our mindfulness. And the second one is Vedana, feeling or sensation. So since this is nice and easy and short, at least in the sutta, we'll just read through it. So let me share. All right, so observing the feelings. How does a mendicant meditate observing an aspect of feelings? It's when a mendicant who feels a pleasant feeling knows, I feel a pleasant feeling. When they feel a painful feeling, they know, I feel a painful feeling. When they feel a neutral feeling, they know. Now see, they know. Now look at the word, and you can see it on the screen. Vajanati. See? This is a very important word when it comes to Satipatthana. Vajanati. They know. This is a deep experiential knowing and understanding. When they feel a neutral feeling, they know, I feel a neutral feeling. When they feel a material pleasant feeling, they know, I feel a material pleasant feeling. When they feel a spiritual pleasant feeling, they know, I feel a spiritual pleasant feeling. Now here is where we need to do some explaining. There's 2 words here, samisang and niramisang. These 2 words are related to feelings, experiences of the body and of the mind. That's the important thing here, that there are sensations. There are pleasant, painful, and neutral that are of the body and of the mind. Right? There's physical pain. There's also a mental pain. Right? That doesn't really have any physical connection per se. There's physical pleasure and there's mental pleasure. The deepest mental pleasures, the most pleasurable, pleasant experiences are in the jhanas. That's why you see here that this word is often translated as spiritual. But that can be confusing. So it's best to think of it as that has a feeling that has no connection to the body. Another way this is translated as carnal and non-carnal. So carnal, in terms of the average English speaker, when we think of carnal, we think of things related to sex, sexual intercourse, etc. But carnal, if you look it up in the dictionary, it means of the body. So of the body, non-carnal, not of the body. So you can be aware of these 2 ways of understanding pleasant, painful, and neutral The full way to translate it is neither pleasant nor painful. Most people do make it simple and just say neutral feeling. So when they feel a material painful feeling, they know I feel a material painful feeling. When they feel a spiritual painful feeling, they know I feel a spiritual painful feeling. When they feel a material neutral feeling, they know I feel a material neutral feeling. When they feel a spiritual neutral feeling, they know I feel a spiritual neutral feeling. And here, just to go over this, I explained it briefly, but this is what you find at the end of every section of Satipatthana. And so they meditate, observing an aspect of feelings internally and externally, and both internally and externally. They meditate, observing feelings as liable to arise, to cease, and to both arise and cease. Or mindfulness is established that feelings exist to the extent necessary for knowledge and mindfulness. They meditate independent, not grasping to anything in the world. That is how a mendicant meditates, observing an aspect of feelings. So you can see that the Buddha gives a framework, and your practice is to experience and understand within that framework. Right? You know, when you're meditating and a painful feeling arises, you feel it. It's like, oh, my knee, this is painful. I don't like this. And you can have, a depression or something, or a strong emotion, like a strong feeling of loss. Somebody has died or whatever. You can have these very, very strong, unpleasant feelings in the mind. Sorrow, lamentation, grief, despair. These are all sensation. These are all feeling, Vedana, that you can observe in the mind. You can also observe rapture. Rapture is extremely pleasant, mind-made only feeling of pleasure, feeling of pleasantness. The Buddha calls this one of the only wholesome pleasures because it is not connected with the carnal. It's not connected with the body. So we can observe the three types of feeling in the two factors of the body and of the mind. Now, the Buddha couldn't give specific examples because there's innumerable amounts of feeling that we can experience. What the Buddha is doing here in a very simple paragraph, 2 paragraphs, is pointing us towards a direction and then saying, okay, go and investigate. Go know it, pajanati, go know it very well. Observe it over and over and over and over again to know it deeply. So with this fairly brief experience, fairly brief instructions in mind, then we go to putting it into practice. Understanding this feeling that arises. This is again something that there's no time, there's no place that you don't experience some kind of sensation, some kind of feeling. Even if you're practicing mindfulness of breathing, right? Often you're trying to stay focused on the feeling of the air going in and out of the nose. And sometimes that feeling is so subtle that it's hard to keep track of. And this is how it is with our feeling and our sensation within the body. Some things are very gross, right? Gross in terms of like easy to observe, easy to understand, like large, like very there. And some things are very subtle, harder to see, harder to really know. You have to really understand it by focusing on it and looking at it and observing it and investigating it for a long period of time. Over many cycles and iterations of it arising. But you could say, you could wake up tomorrow, wake up Monday and say, make an aspiration for the rest of this day. I will do nothing but observe Vedana. And you'd be busy the whole day. Absolutely busy the whole day. Even if there are times where you think you're not having any feeling, a lot of times what happens is that feelings become so ubiquitous that that the mind kind of ignores them. And so that they don't even recognize that they're there. That's what a neutral feeling is. Neither painful nor pleasant. It's just a feeling. And because it doesn't have that strong valence, that hedonic tone of pleasure or painful, it just gets ignored. Some of you might be saying, well, what the heck is a neutral feeling? What is neither painful nor pleasurable? And the hint is the two objects of meditation that you've practiced today. You focused on what? The breath. And you focused on the foot during walking meditation. Throughout the day, you breathe thousands of times. Are you aware of that? Do you pay attention to that at all? No. Unless there's like something that's obstructing your breathing, or there's an abnormal breath or something to that effect, you're not going to pay attention to that. It's just the body, it's the feeling of the breath going in and out. You don't pay attention to that. You have other things that you need to focus on. So you don't pay attention to it. Same thing with walking. You don't pay attention to the feeling of your feet pressing around on the floor. You walk thousands of steps a day, or hundreds. Some people can't walk at all, or can't feel their feet and stuff like that. So it doesn't necessarily apply there. But because it's a feeling that we feel all the time, and it doesn't have that strong valence, we don't pay attention to it. That's a neutral feeling. And the Buddha actually wants us to pay attention to neutral feelings. Hence why they're used as objects of meditation. In the sutta, Salla Sutta, simile of the arrow, the Buddha says that we have underlying habitual tendencies. The underlying habitual tendency towards a pleasant feeling is greed, attachment. We like it, we want more of it, we want to hold on to it. The habitual tendency towards unpleasant feeling, painful feeling, is aversion. We want to push it away, we want to avoid it, we want to have nothing to do with it, if we have to, we'll kill it. And well, what's the underlying tendency to neutral feeling? Ignorance. Because we don't pay attention to it, we don't recognize it's happening, we're ignorant of it. And so it is in that paying attention to neutral feeling there is a vehicle that leads us to insight, to awakening. Buddha says that the breath takes us all the way to awakening. So neutral feeling should not be underestimated. The breath, the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor as you walk. These are important feelings to investigate, to understand. But as you do that, as you observe physical sensation, a painful feeling arises, watch. Watch what you do. You want to, if you're meditating and a painful feeling arises, maybe if you're a good meditator, strong meditator, you might try to endure it and investigate it for a while, but then it just gets too strong and you just want to, thoughts starting arising in your mind, and you just feel it, you just start to feel like you need to change your posture. You need to do something to alleviate that pain. And so you see right then and there, the underlying tendency you have towards painful experience is to avoid it. In the Salla Sutta, simile of the arrow, Buddha says that the average person does not know an escape from painful feeling other than pleasant feeling. Observe that in yourself. What do you do when you have unpleasant experiences, unpleasant feelings? You try to get some comfort food, or even worse, maybe alcohol or drugs. Some kind of pleasant dopamine hit that can distract us away from the unpleasant feeling, at least for a little while. You can observe that in yourself. That's the importance of reflecting and observing and understanding Vedana, feeling. Because you can observe how the feeling ropes you around, like you're tied down to a dog, and the dog is just maybe you're like a little kid, where the dog is really, really a huge, gigantic dog, and you have it on a leash, but as soon as it wants to bolt, you're just being dragged along by the dog. Right? That's what happens when we experience feeling. We have craving that arises. Craving to indulge in it and be greedy, or craving to avoid it, run away from it. So Vedana is a very, very important ground for the development of insight, development of mindfulness. The same thing with the mental aspects. When you have a strong emotional feeling, people will ask, well, where does emotions fit in this? And there's no one word that the Buddha used to talk about emotion. I would say probably emotions cover multiple Satipatthanas. Emotions probably fit both in Vedana and Chitta, which is the next one, what we're going to do tomorrow morning. And because they're very complicated experiences. They often have a connection of mentally and physically together. So these very complicated experiences are also grounds for investigation, grounds to understand. And again, when you have found time, when you're stuck in traffic at the grocery store, let me focus on my Vedana. Let me focus on the feelings that are arising. Maybe you do some chitta nupassana. The next one, you observe anger has arisen in the mind. You're waiting online. You're really agitated. The time is late, all these things. And you can focus on the feeling. You can focus on the sensation. What does it feel like to be full of anger, full of anxiety? Oftentimes, we might feel something is pleasant, but if we see it more deeply, we realize, oh, it's actually quite unpleasant. This is not as pleasant as I thought it was when I wasn't paying attention. When you're at your desk at work, the same thing. Whatever you're doing, you can choose to focus in on your sensations, your feeling. Really observe that. I got into the habit in my lay life of trying to do what I call 1 in 59. Others call it minute mindfulness. Different teachers, many different teachers teach it, and they call it different things. But essentially, the idea is like the last hour or the last minute of every hour throughout your day, try to stop and for at least a minute, follow your body, follow your sensations, follow your breath, whatever works, whatever you'd like to do. Just to stop, pause, and be in the current moment with your mind and your body, whatever's going on. And so I started to do that. And I started doing that. I'm pretty sure I started doing that before I had a smartphone. So I don't think I had like to set an alarm. These days you can set an alarm. Or if you don't want anybody to hear the alarm, there's like websites where you can go on and you can set an alarm and it'll go into your headphones or something like that. But that was a good practice for me to train my mind to come to what's happening in my mind and my body. When I ended up being roped into group conversations, gossip and things like that, and I couldn't escape. Sometimes if I escaped, I would, bow out gracefully. Sometimes I couldn't escape. And so what I would do is I'd focus on my body, my feeling, listening to the conversation, observing my reactions, observing what is arising in the body and in the feeling and in the mind. It's hard to separate it. Once the majority of my practice, some teachers will say, today, just focus on one. And I remember kind of doing that in the early days. But what I kept finding was, as I was focusing on one, I noticed the other ones were involved in the same experience. And so I just started realizing, well, every experience has all of them. It's all there because it's all connected. It's like what do they call, like the psychophysical organism, the mind and the body. It's all connected. It's all part of the same experience. And so you can observe all of them together. But in the beginning, it might not be a bad idea to try to focus just on one, so you get a better understanding of what that is. That feeling that arises in the body can be a trigger for you, an idea, like it can be pointing you towards something. As I was saying before, sometimes I find out what's going on with me through my body and through my Vedana before I do through my mind. Mind is hard. Mind is subtle, quick, right? Easy to not see. And so when we focus in on Vedana, we can see what the experience is and what our reaction to that experience is. It's the reaction in many ways that's the most important part, because you're observing your habitual tendencies. It's your habitual tendencies that are causing you your suffering. And they're called anusaya, underlying habitual tendencies. Buddha called them this word because they are, in some ways, in the subconscious. They're automatic. They're things that we don't pay attention to. It's simple dependent origination. Pain arises, my reaction arises. Pain ceases, my reaction ceases. You can observe that over and over and over and over again. Pleasure arises. I see a pleasant sight with the eye. I hear a pleasant sound with the ear. Reaction arises. Ooh, I like this. I want to hear more of this. I want to see more of this. That cycle can lead us to all kinds of suffering. But when we practice much Vedana-nupassana, when we really start to see pleasant, painful, neutral feeling and know it very well, then we have options. It arises. Painful feeling arises. And you observe it. Oh, I feel this. And then you can say, well, normally, when this arises, this is how I act. But when I do that, then I usually end up suffering more. What can I do to go against my habit, to do something else that will cause me less suffering? And then at that point, you reflect. Okay, well, this sutta says to try this. That teacher says to try that. Let me try those. Or even maybe you have your own idea. Oh, that might be a good idea. Let me try that. And then you apply that technique. And you see, well, this worked for me, or it didn't work for me. Or it might work if I was a bit more wise. And then you keep practicing, because that sensation, that experience is going to keep arising. It doesn't just come once and then it's gone forever. You'll start to see the patterns arise. The same kind of mind states, the same habits arising over and over and over and over again. And by paying attention to Vedana, you're able to observe that and understand what Vedana is and how you skillfully manage it, endure it, do something with it. Vedana is very, very, very important. And so it's worthy of investigation, worthy of study. Paying attention to it, but you can do it anytime. Right now, if I kind of open my awareness, I'm aware of about 10 to 15 different feelings I can focus in on right now. My ankle against the floor, my hands against my leg, my buttocks on the cushion. There's a whole field of things I could investigate right now if I wanted to. Sometimes I can even investigate it a little bit even while I'm talking, but not too deeply because I am engaged in sharing Dhamma. And the more you focus in on feeling and sensation, the more you'll be able to see. Just like as I explained, you can see this whole field. There's always some sensation going on. One of the ways that I know I'm getting into a deep state of meditation is I go through what I call the itch storm. As I'm starting to become very calm, very peaceful, very clearly aware of what's going on as I'm following my breath, all of a sudden, I just started feeling itchy all over my body. It's almost unbearable, just so many itches, more than I could keep track of. And after experiencing that multiple times, I learned, okay, I have to stay the course. I have to keep following my breath. Don't get distracted by those itches. Understand them, patiently endure them for a brief time. And then once I'm through, it's all gone. And I'm much more focused in on my breath, much more focused in on my object of meditation. And that's Vedana, right? All of those itches. Itching is unpleasant. We want to get rid of itches real quick. That's why we scratch, because it's a pleasant feeling. And we get rid of the itch. These are things to be understood and things to be seen in the practice with regarding to Vedana. So with that, why don't we do some meditation? So set yourself up in whatever posture works for you. And then start doing what we did the last one. Start going through the body scan. Right? Start with your feet, move up to your head, observing both whatever sensation arises in the part of the body that you're scanning through. Adjust your posture as you're doing it as needed so that you can set your posture up to sit as comfortable as possible for as long as possible. Remember, as you're scanning through the body, if you have trouble connecting with a sensation in that part of the body, you can prompt yourself by asking, what do I see? What do I feel? And then something should arise in your field of awareness to focus on. Whenever you're done scanning through your body, take your 3 deep breaths. And then start to follow the breath as we did before. Remember to lay down your burdens. Put down your world. There'll be plenty of time to pick it up again later. Remember, whenever you're distracted away, acknowledge, let go, and return. Acknowledge, let go, and return. Now we will start to shift our focus away from the breath. Bring your awareness away from the breath to a broad awareness of the entire body. From here on in, maintain this broad awareness. And while doing so, a sensation will arise prominently in your awareness. A pain, an itch, pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, whatever it may be. When that feeling arises, dive deep into that feeling. Observe it and investigate it at the deepest, most subtle level you can. Really know that feeling. If it's a painful feeling, try to do your best to patiently endure it long enough to learn something from it. Before needing to adjust your posture or whatever you normally would to alleviate it. But from here on in, keep that open awareness. As things arise in your awareness, investigate the feeling. And when that sensation starts to cease, come back to that broad awareness until the next thing that arises. And investigate that. Continue to observe and investigate prominent feelings that arise. When investigating pleasurable feelings, be careful not to get too wrapped up in them, losing your mindfulness. Try to know the feelings for exactly what they are. At the level of direct experience of them. What does an itch or a pain feel like? Is it one solid thing that seems to be lasting forever? Or is it actually moving and changing? Pay as deep attention as you can to whatever Vedana is prominently arising. And if you can catch it early, you can watch how it arises. And watch how it starts to become less strong a feeling and ends up ceasing and going away. And slowly open your eyes. You could even maintain awareness of whatever feeling you were last investigating, even as your eyes open. This very, very basic kind of observing of feelings technique that I gave you is just simply really understanding and investigating it, delving deep into it. And you can do that eyes closed while sitting. You can do it eyes awake while doing anything else. It's a powerful practice to understand Vedana, to understand the feeling. So, friends, I'm going to